My name is Emily. I am 22 years old, and this is the story of the night my own mother turned my life into her idea of a joke. It started with a road trip that was supposed to be family bonding. Instead, it became the moment everything between us snapped. We had crossed the state line hours earlier when we pulled into a lonely gas station off the highway. The sky was already sliding into dark, and I remember thinking I just needed to survive this trip, smile through the comments, and get back to campus. My mom killed the engine, turned around in her seat, and smiled at me in that fake, sugary way she used whenever she was about to say something awful. "Let's see if she can come back," she laughed. My brother laughed with her. They all laughed. And then, they drove away. One second, I was grabbing my backpack from the back seat. The next, their taillights were shrinking into the distance while my feet stayed glued to the concrete. My mom thought it was funny to leave me stranded in another state. I did not even hear my own scream at first. It was swallowed by the roar of passing trucks and the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. A few hours later, their faces would go pale when the police showed up at their door. By then, I had made a decision that would change our family forever. If you have ever felt like the punchline in your own family, stay till the end to see exactly how I turned their joke into the worst mistake of their lives, and make sure you hit subscribe so you do not miss what came next. A few hours before that knock on their door, it was just another car ride where I was the designated joke. I was crammed into the back seat of my mom's SUV, knees pulled up under my backpack, while she and my older brother traded stories about me like I was some embarrassing highlight reel. Every few miles, there was a new memory. The time I froze in front of the entire marching band. The time I dropped the cake at my cousin's graduation party. The time I cried because my science project got only second place and apparently ruined a family photo. "She always falls apart when things get a little hard," my mom said lightly, hands steady on the steering wheel. "Guess we will see if she can survive one night without having a meltdown," my brother replied. They both laughed. I stared out the window, counting the highway signs for each new state line we passed, pretending my reflection was someone braver than I felt. This trip was supposed to be a simple birthday reunion at my old high school. Drive a few hours, smile at people who barely remembered me, and drive back. I had almost said no. The only reason I agreed was because my mom dangled money and family time like bait. Tuition was tight. Saying no felt impossible. When we finally pulled off the interstate, the air outside looked different. The license plates, the billboards, even the shape of the trees reminded me I was not just a few neighborhoods away. I was in another state, somewhere I did not know, in a car with people who still treated me like I was 12. "Bathroom break," my mom announced as she turned into the gas station. The place was almost empty, just a lone clerk inside and a couple of long-haul trucks humming on the other side of the lot. She parked by the pumps and twisted in her seat toward me with that too-sweet smile. "You take forever," she said. "Grab whatever you need. We will wait right here." I opened the door, the hot air slamming into my face as I stepped onto the concrete. I slung my backpack onto one shoulder and started toward the convenience store. Something in my chest tugged. That familiar voice whispered, "You should not trust this. You know better." Halfway to the door, I heard my brother laugh, low and cruel. "You know what would be hilarious?" he said. "What if we left her here and saw if she could figure it out? She thinks she is so independent now. Let's see if she can come back," my mom answered, echoing the line she would later brag about as if it were clever. I stopped. I turned. My mother was still smiling, one hand on the gear shift. "You are not serious," I said. "Relax," she sang back. "Take it as a little test. You want to be an adult. Prove it." The engine roared to life. Tires scraped the gravel. The SUV rolled forward, slow at first, like they were bluffing. I stood there, one hand stretched out, waiting for them to stop, to shout, "Just kidding," to open the door and let me climb back in. They did not. The car picked up speed. Their laughter spilled out the open windows and then snapped shut as my mom rolled them up. The SUV pulled out of the lot and merged back onto the highway like I was nothing more than a forgotten receipt. For a few seconds, I could not move. The air felt too thick, my vision too sharp. The gas station signs, the flickering "open" in the window, the rows of fuel pumps, all of it blurred around the one fact that hit me harder than anything they had ever said. They really left me, in another state, on purpose. My phone was at 30%. No charger. No nearby bus stop. No one waiting for me down the road. Just a college senior standing alone under humming lights, realizing that her own family had decided her safety was a punchline. My first instinct was exactly what they expected. Panic. Tears. That familiar helpless spiral. I felt it rising, the lump in my throat, the sting in my eyes. But then something colder slid in underneath the fear, like ice settling at the bottom of a glass. If they wanted to test me, they were about to find out what I could really do. What would you do if the people who were supposed to protect you treated your life like a party game? The first thing I did was force myself to breathe. In, out. I could not think clearly if I let them win inside my head before I even moved my feet. Inside the gas station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the air smelled like old coffee and floor cleaner. A middle-aged woman behind the counter glanced up from her magazine when I walked in, taking in my backpack, my shaking hands, the way I was scanning the parking lot like I had just watched my whole life drive away. "You look like you have had a day," she said gently. "Something like that," I managed. "Do you have somewhere I can sit for a minute?" She nodded toward a tiny seating area near the coolers, 2 plastic chairs and a small table. I dropped into one of them, fingers wrapped so tight around my phone that my knuckles hurt. On the lock screen, my mom's last text from earlier glowed up at me. "Remember to smile tonight." The irony made my stomach twist. I could call her. I could call my brother. I could beg them to come back. Prove every word they had ever said about me needing them. Instead, I opened the map app. The reunion was still hours away, in a town on the other side of the state. Home was even farther. The small blue dot that was me blinked stubbornly in the middle of nowhere. The woman from the counter left her post and walked over, wiping her hands on a towel. "My name is Karen," she said. "That car that just tore out of here, is that who you came with?" Her words knocked the air out of me. My eyes burned, but I held her gaze. "They thought it would be funny to leave me here," I replied. Saying it out loud made it sound even more insane. "They are my family." Karen's brows pulled together. "They dumped you at a gas station in another state and drove off," she said slowly. "That is not a joke. That is neglect." Neglect. The word hit like a slap. I had used a lot of words for my family before. Controlling, mean, cruel when they were bored. I had never used that one. "I am 22, I said weakly, as if that made it better. "They keep telling me I have to prove I can handle myself." "Adults can still be abused," Karen replied, her voice steady. "Do you have anywhere safe to go tonight?" I thought about calling a friend from college. I thought about begging a classmate to drive 2 states over to rescue me because my own mother had decided I was expendable. Shame crawled over my skin at the idea. They would ask questions I was not ready to answer. "I was supposed to go to a reunion," I said. "They are there, or they will be." "You do not have to chase them," Karen said. "You could call the police, tell them exactly what happened, and let them chase your family for once." For a moment, I almost laughed. Call the police on my own mom? On my brother? The girl I had been 6 months ago would have dismissed that idea immediately. We do not air our dirty laundry. We do not make scenes. We do not make trouble. But then I pictured my mom's face when she spun that steering wheel. The cheap thrill in her eyes. The way my brother's laugh had bounced off the glass as if he were watching a prank video instead of real life. They counted on me to keep their secrets, to swallow the hurt quietly, to keep coming back no matter how many times they pushed me away. What would I even say? I asked, more to myself than to Karen. "You tell them the truth," she said simply. That you were left here on purpose with no way to get home. That you do not feel safe with them. They can decide what to do next. Something shifted inside me. This was not about tattling. It was about finally letting someone bigger than our messed up little triangle see what was actually happening. Is there a station nearby? I asked. Karen nodded. About 10 minutes down the road. My friend Jack works at the auto shop next door. He is trustworthy. I can ask him to drive you there. The old version of me would have hesitated, worried about being a burden, worried about making a fuss. This version of me was standing in a gas station in another state because my mom wanted to see if I would still crawl back. Okay, I said, feeling my voice harden. Call Jack. While she dialed, I opened my messages and scrolled to my mom's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. Instead, I tapped block caller and watched her number slide off my screen. If she wanted to see whether I could come back, she was about to find out what it looked like when I chose not to. Jack arrived in a faded pickup truck that rattled slightly when he cut the engine. He stepped out, wiping his hands on a shop rag, grease still smudged along his wrists. Karen met him halfway across the lot, gesturing toward me like I was something fragile but important. "This is the girl I called about," she said. "Her family left her here." Jack's eyes widened just enough to betray his shock before he covered it with a calm nod. "You all right?" he asked me. I swallowed, shoulders squared. "Not really," I said. "But I will be." He nodded again, like that was the answer he had hoped for. "The sheriff's office is a 10-minute drive. Hop in. We will get you somewhere safer than this parking lot." I climbed into the passenger seat, clutching my backpack like a life jacket. The ride felt both too short and too long. The highway lights streaked by, and every mile we drove away from the gas station felt like another inch I gained back from my mother. Jack did not push me to talk, but when I started, he listened. "They said it was just a joke," I told him, "that I needed to prove I could handle myself." They laughed when they pulled away. "Some people confuse cruelty for humor," he said quietly. "That is on them, not you." "It is not the first time," I added. "It is just the first time they crossed a state line while doing it." By the time we pulled into the small brick building with the sheriff's star over the door, my story was spilling out in fragments. The dispatcher at the front desk took one look at my red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands and waved us back to a small interview room. The deputy who sat across from me introduced himself, then pushed a bottle of water across the table. "Just start from the beginning," he said. "Tell me what happened, and do not leave anything out." So I did. I told him about the jokes that were never really jokes, about the way my mom used my worst moments as party stories, about my brother's constant need to one-up me, and about the way today had gone from tense to terrifying in a matter of seconds. I told him about the gas station in the other state, about hearing them plan to leave, about watching the SUV pull away, about the 30% battery and the absence of any plan that did not involve begging them to come back. "And do you believe they intended to return at any point?" he asked. I thought about the way my mom had grinned at me, about the way my brother had leaned forward in his seat like he was about to watch fireworks. My jaw tightened. "No," I said. "They wanted to see what would happen. They think nothing bad ever really happens to us, because it never happens to them." The deputy gave a slow nod and scribbled notes on his pad. "You did the right thing by coming here," he said. "Leaving an adult in a vulnerable situation hundreds of miles from home without transportation or a way to get back is serious, especially when it is family." Karen, who had insisted on sitting in the corner of the room, chimed in. "She did not even have a charger. If anything had happened to her out there, we take this kind of thing seriously." The deputy cut in. "We are going to call the department that covers the gas station, get the security footage, and file an incident report." "Where does your mother live, Emily?" I gave him the address. It felt surreal, spelling out the street where I had once ridden my bike and scraped my knees, knowing this time the path there would be traced by patrol cars instead of family minivans. "We will also contact the local police near your home," he continued. They will perform a welfare check and speak with your family. Given the circumstances, they will likely head to wherever they are tonight first, then home, if needed. My pulse jumped. You mean they will go to the reunion? To the school? He checked the details in my story again, then nodded. If that is where they are, yes. It is the best place to make contact quickly. Right now, we are operating under the assumption that you are a missing person, because as far as your family knows, you vanished from that gas station. We need to make it very clear that abandoning you was not just a harmless prank. The words missing person sent a strange chill through me. For a moment, I imagined my mom's face when officers showed up, asking where I was. I pictured the panic in her eyes, the way the color would drain from her cheeks, the way my brother would stammer, trying to spin the story into something less ugly than the truth. They had always loved being the center of attention. I wondered how it would feel for them when the spotlight finally turned on what they had actually done. Where will I stay tonight? I asked quietly. We can arrange a safe place for you, the deputy replied. We will also help you get back to your campus or somewhere you choose, once we have taken your full statement. For now, I need you to write down everything you remember from today. Times, conversations, anything you think might matter. I took the pen from him. My hand was still shaking, but not from fear anymore. It was from adrenaline and something sharper. Resolve. As I wrote, each detail felt like a brick in a wall I was finally building between me and the people who had spent years tearing me down. The time we left the house, the jokes in the car, the exact words my mom used, the way my brother laughed, the moment the SUV rolled away. This is not about revenge, I told myself under my breath. This is about the truth. But deep down, I knew both could be true. By the time I set the pen down, the outline of what came next had formed in my mind. I did not have to scream, or chase their car, or beg them to come back. I just had to let the reality of what they did echo through a place they cared about more than me. Their reputation. Let them explain to the police why their daughter was sitting in a sheriff's office in another state while they danced at a party and told everyone we were a happy family. By the time I finished writing, my wrist ached, and the clock on the wall had crept past midnight. The deputy stepped out with my statement to make some calls, leaving me alone in the small room with my thoughts. I stared at the blank space at the bottom of the page where my signature sat, neat and final. Somewhere, my mom still believed this was just a wild story she would retell at holidays. Remember when we left Emily at that gas station and she totally freaked out? Everyone would laugh, and I would sit there, shrinking into my chair. Not this time. When the deputy came back, he carried a different kind of energy with him. His jaw was tight, and there was a printout in his hand. They located your family, he said, sitting down opposite me again. The local officers just arrived at the reunion. They confirmed your mother and brother are there. They were surprised to see the police. I could not help it. A small, humorless smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. I bet they were. He glanced at his notes. Do you want to know what happened when they walked in? Every part of me screamed yes, but I forced my voice to stay calm. Only if it is part of the report, I said. He almost smiled back. They documented the interaction so I can summarize. He looked down at the page. The officers entered the school gym, approached your mother, and asked if she knew where you were. She told them you had stepped out for a moment and that you were probably on your way. When they informed her you had filed a report from another state and were currently listed as missing, witnesses say she went pale. Your brother tried to interrupt, insisting it was all a harmless prank. I closed my eyes for a second, picturing it. The balloons, the music, the clusters of former classmates in their best outfits. And then officers stepping into the middle of all that shine, asking about the daughter they had left behind like she was luggage. Did they admit to leaving me? I asked. The deputy nodded slowly. At first, they tried to frame it as a misunderstanding. But when the officers mentioned the gas station security footage, your mom admitted they drove away on purpose. She said you were an adult, and she thought you would figure it out and meet them there. A familiar mix of anger and disbelief bubbled in my chest. I had heard that line so many times. She would throw me into the deep end, then act shocked when I struggled to swim. What did the officers say? I pressed. They explained that intentionally leaving someone stranded in another state, hours from home, can be considered endangerment, he replied. They told her that if something had happened to you, she could be facing criminal charges. They also informed her that, as of right now, the incident is on record and will be reviewed by the prosecutor's office. For a moment, the room felt very quiet. I imagined my mom hearing the word charges and realizing the punchline had finally landed on her. They asked your brother why he did not call you to check on you after you did not show up, the deputy added. He said he assumed you had gotten a ride or that you were being dramatic. When they asked why neither of them attempted to return to the gas station after several hours, he did not have an answer. A part of me wanted to cry for the girl I used to be, the one who would have accepted any half-hearted apology for this kind of treatment because she was desperate to keep the peace. Another part of me felt something like justice for the first time. So what now? I asked. Now, he said. We make sure you are safe, and we let them sit with what they have done. The officers told them you are in our care and not to attempt to contact you directly tonight. They can communicate through legal channels once the investigation moves forward. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. My phone buzzed where it sat on the table, face down. When I flipped it over, I saw a string of missed calls from an unknown number and one voicemail. I did not have to listen to guess who it was. Can they get in trouble for calling me? I asked. If they try to threaten or pressure you, keep the messages, he replied. For now, you do not have to respond to anything. We can also help you get a protective order if things escalate. Karen, who had stayed just outside the door, peeked in when she heard the conversation lull. Do you want to come back to my place tonight? She asked softly. I have a guest room. The deputy said it is okay as long as you are comfortable with it. The idea of going back to a stranger's house should have scared me. Instead, I felt strangely safe with the thought of being anywhere my family was not. I nodded. Yes, I said. I do not want them to know exactly where I am. On the ride to Karen's small house, the events of the night replayed in my head like scenes from a movie I could not quite believe I was starring in. My mom's grin at the gas station, the taste of panic in the back of my throat, the steady scratch of my pen across the deputy's form, the image of officers stepping into the reunion, cutting through the fake smiles and polite conversations with three simple words. Where is Emily? I pressed my forehead against the cool window and whispered to myself. They wanted to see if I could come back. Fine. Now they can see what it feels like when I choose to walk away. In the glow of the streetlights, another thought surfaced, sharp and clear. This story was no longer just about what they did to me. It was about what I was going to do with it. I was done being their silent punchline. If they cared more about their reputation than my safety, then that was exactly where they were going to feel this. And this was only the beginning. I did not sleep much at Karen's house. Her guest room was small but clean, with a quilt that smelled faintly of laundry detergent and lavender. She left the door cracked open in case I needed anything, a simple gesture that felt more protective than most things my own family had done in years. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, my phone on the pillow beside me. More missed calls, more texts from unknown numbers. One voicemail transcribed on the screen. We need to talk. Call me back right now. No apology. No, are you safe? Just urgency because, for once, they were not in control. I put the phone on airplane mode and stared into the dark. Somewhere, my mom was spinning a story, trying to make herself the victim. The misunderstood parent, the overdramatic daughter, the police who overreacted. I knew her well enough to predict every line. What she had never prepared for was this: the moment I stopped backing her version of events. By the time the sun bled through the curtains, my stomach was tight with a different kind of nervousness. Not fear, anticipation. The deputy was coming back to take me to the campus town while the other department finished their interviews with my family. There would be follow-up, paperwork, maybe court. It all sounded terrifying and exhausting. It also sounded final. At the station later that morning, the deputy handed me a disposable cup of coffee and a folder. "Emily," he said, "I want you to understand what happens now. The other department submitted their preliminary report. We have your statement, the gas station footage, and multiple witness accounts from the reunion." "Witnesses?" I repeated. He nodded. "Your mother made a scene when the officers arrived. There were plenty of people around. Some of them recorded parts of the interaction. A few have already sent those clips in." I imagined classmates I had not seen in years holding up their phones while my mother argued with officers under the school gym lights. Her hair sprayed into place, makeup perfect, voice pitching higher as she realized she could not charm her way out of this one. "Based on what we have," he continued, "this could go beyond a simple welfare check. The prosecutor may consider charges related to endangerment or reckless conduct. I cannot promise anything, but I can tell you this is being taken seriously." A part of me flinched at the word charges. This was still my mom. This was still my brother. We had shared holidays, movie nights, inside jokes. They had also left me by the side of the road like forgotten trash. Both things were true. "What if I do not want them in my life anymore?" I asked quietly. "Does that matter?" "It matters a lot," he said. "You are an adult. You get to decide the level of contact you are comfortable with. We can connect you with resources if you choose to set legal boundaries, protective orders, no contact agreements, counseling referrals. But whatever happens, your safety comes first." For the first time, I let myself picture a future that did not include hearing my mother's voice every week. No more constructive criticism disguised as concern. No more being dragged to events to play the role of the awkward, lesser child. No more laughing along when the joke was always me. It felt like grief and relief twisted together. On the drive toward campus, my phone buzzed again when I switched airplane mode off. This time, one of the numbers left a text that made my jaw clench so hard it hurt. "You have gone too far, Emily." "The police? Really? You are making us look insane. Call me back and fix this." No signature. I did not need one. That was my brother's style. No apology, just blame. Without thinking too hard, I opened my camera roll and took a picture of the station parking lot from the back seat of the cruiser, the date and time stamped clearly at the top. Then I screenshotted the text and saved both in a new album labeled Evidence. If they were going to turn this into a story about how ungrateful I was going to make sure I had my own version ready. Not a screaming match, not a dramatic phone call. Something colder and more precise. By the time we reached the campus town, the deputy had already arranged a short-term housing option for me through student services. They met us at the station, faces tight with concern when they heard the outline of what had happened. "We will get you into a temporary room," one of the coordinators said. "No one outside this office will know where you are unless you want them to. And if your family shows up on campus, security will be notified." I signed the papers they put in front of me. As I wrote my name for the 5th time that day, a strange thought settled in. Every signature was one more step away from the version of me my mom thought she owned. A few days later, the fallout truly began. It started with a link one of my old classmates sent me. No message, just a URL and a shocked face emoji. When I tapped it, a grainy video opened, filmed vertically in the middle of the gym. The caption read, "When your funny mom gets called out by the cops at the reunion." There she was, my mother in her best dress, arguing with 2 officers while music thumped in the background and people pretended not to stare. My brother hovered beside her, eyes darting around the room, clearly aware of the phones aimed at them. "You cannot be serious," my mom said in the clip, voice brittle. "She is an adult. She is fine. We just left her there for a little while." The officer's reply was muffled, but the words stranded, "another state," and "neglect" were clear enough to make the room around them go still. The video cut to my brother insisting it was all a joke, that I was extra sensitive, that I always made things bigger than they really were. The comments below the video were a mix of disbelief and disgust. Who leaves their kid in another state as a joke? This is why some of us go no contact. Imagine defending this on camera. The views climbed faster than I could scroll. For years, my mom had controlled the narrative. She told the stories. She edited the details. She decided which parts of me were funny and which were pathetic. Now, strangers were watching her defend abandoning her daughter to two officers in front of a room full of people. And they were not laughing with her. That was the moment I realized my revenge was not going to be a single dramatic act. It was going to be a slow, relentless refusal to play my old role in her script ever again. The prosecutor's office reached out a week later. They wanted to schedule a virtual meeting to go over the case and discuss my options. My heart hammered as I dialed in, but I listened carefully, asked questions, took notes. Pressing formal charges is your choice, the attorney said. We can move forward with or without your cooperation based on the evidence, but your statement carries weight. So does your preference regarding sentencing, if it comes to that. I stared at my reflection in the little video window, light from my laptop washing my face in blue. This was not the shaky girl standing in a gas station anymore. This was the version of me they had accidentally created when they decided to see if I could survive without them. I want it on record, I said slowly, that what they did was not a joke. I want there to be consequences, but I do not want to spend the rest of my life in court with them. We can explore alternatives, the attorney replied. Diversion programs, mandated counseling, community service, but the incident will stay on record either way. That was enough for me. They wanted a game. They got a file they could not erase. Weeks turned into months. The video from the reunion kept circulating in different corners of the internet, resurfacing every time someone posted about toxic families or gaslighting. I did not share it. I did not need to. All I did was live my life. I focused on my classes. I got a campus job. I started going to therapy and learning how to separate my own voice from my mother's. I blocked their numbers, their emails, their surprise friend requests from fake accounts. But I also started writing. At first, it was just for me, little diary entries about what had happened, about the way it felt to be abandoned and then found by strangers who treated me better than my family ever had. Then one day, in a late-night haze, I opened a blank document and wrote at the top, "Mom thought it would be funny to leave me stranded in another state. Let's see if she can." I wrote the story from beginning to end. Every detail, every emotion, every moment I almost gave in and called them back. I did not use their real names. I did not need to. The truth was enough. When I was done, I stared at the document for a long time. Posting it meant letting the world see the ugliest parts of my life. It also meant taking back every moment they had turned me into a punchline at parties, every time they had laughed about my pain. In the end, I hit upload. And that was how the story you are hearing right now began. By the time my story started gaining traction online, the legal part of everything was already in motion. Comments poured in from strangers who recognized themselves in my words, people who had been left on highways, abandoned at airports, humiliated in front of their friends, as a joke, people who had been told they were overreacting for not laughing along. For every view the reunion video got, my story got another reader who understood exactly why it was not funny. I did not expect my mom to find it. Not at first. She hated the internet unless it was flattering her. But this was the kind of thing people whispered about, shared in group chats, sent with a, "This sounds like that woman from the reunion," attached. The first time she mentioned it was in a letter. A real, physical letter that showed up at my temporary campus mailbox like it had crawled out of a past life. The outside was neat, my name written in her graceful, practiced handwriting. I knew before I opened it that nothing inside would be simple. "Emily, I saw what you posted. Those were the first words. No hello. No I miss you. Just an accusation dressed as a statement. You have made me look like a monster to the entire town, to the entire internet. People are calling me abusive. They do not know the full story. They do not know how much I have done for you, how much I sacrificed. You took one mistake and turned it into a public execution. I read that line 3 times, my vision sharpening with every word. One mistake. As if this had been a miscalculated joke at a birthday party, not the final straw in a lifetime of cruelty packaged as love. She ended the letter with a twisted apology. I am sorry if you felt abandoned, but you did not have to ruin my life over it. We are family. Family forgives. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Then I walked it straight to the campus counseling office and asked them to add it to my file. My therapist read it, exhaled slowly, and looked up at me. This, she said, tapping the page, is exactly what we talk about when we talk about manipulation. She is not apologizing for what she did. She is apologizing for how you felt, and then blaming you for her consequences. I did not cry. Not this time. I had run out of tears for her. I am not writing back, I said. If she wants to talk to someone, she can talk to her lawyer. The prosecutor eventually settled on a deal. My mother would attend mandatory counseling and a family accountability program, complete a set number of community service hours, and accept a formal record of the incident. My brother would be required to attend the same program and submit a written statement acknowledging harm. If they complied, the more serious charges would not go to trial. If they did not, everything could be reopened. I agreed to the terms, not for them, but for me. I did not want this to become my full-time job. I wanted closure, not a courtroom. The real revenge did not come from paperwork, though. It came from the slow erosion of the image they had spent years polishing. Their friends started asking questions. The parents who used to laugh along with my mom at barbecues stopped inviting her. My brother's co-workers saw the video and the think pieces that followed. The casual cruelty he had always passed off as just joking suddenly looked a lot uglier when everyone knew what he had done. I heard all of this secondhand, from people who reached out with some version of the same message. I did not realize it was that bad. I am sorry I laughed with them. Funny thing about reputations, they shatter quietly and then all at once. Months later, I agreed to one final meeting, not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted to look them in the eyes and say the words I should have said years ago. The room was neutral and bland, a mediation office with soft chairs and a box of tissues in the middle of the table like a centerpiece. The facilitator sat between us. My mom on one side, my brother beside her. Me, alone, on the other. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe it was just that I was finally seeing her without the filter of guilt and obligation. My brother's shoulders were hunched, his usual cocky smirk nowhere to be found. Emily, my mom began, voice trembling, we never meant to hurt you like this. It was a terrible mistake. We thought you would be okay. Stop, I said quietly. You did not just make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to leave me in another state and call it a game. You chose to laugh while I stood there begging you not to go. You chose to lie to the police when they asked where I was. She flinched. I was scared, she insisted. They made it sound so serious. I panicked. You panicked when there were consequences, I corrected. Not when you turned the key and drove away from your daughter. My brother finally spoke, voice rough. Look, I know we took it too far. I am sorry, okay? We just wanted to see how you would handle it. You have always acted like we never let you be independent. You were trying to break me, I cut in. And when I did not break the way you expected, you were shocked that anyone cared. Silence sat heavy between us. The facilitator glanced at me, then at them, then back again. Emily, she said gently, what do you need them to understand today? I thought about all the years I had spent twisting myself into a shape that fit their idea of a daughter. The jokes I had laughed at, the apologies I had given for things that were never my fault, the way I had begged for their approval like it was oxygen. I need you to understand, I said slowly, looking directly at my mother, that I am done. Her eyes widened. Done with what? With this, I replied. With being your punchline. With letting you dress abuse up as family humor. With pretending that what you did to me that night was anything but cruel. I reported you because I did not feel safe. I told my story because I am not going to hide your choices anymore. Her lower lip trembled. A year ago, that might have broken me. Now I recognized it for what it was. Another performance. We are your family, she whispered. You cannot just walk away from your family. I held her gaze, feeling something inside me click into place like a lock finally sliding shut. You already did, I said. You just did not expect me to keep walking. The facilitator cleared her throat softly. Do you want any future contact with them? She asked. I took a breath. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. Not right now, I answered. If that changes, it will be on my terms, through my channels. Not surprise visits, not guilt letters, not public scenes. Until then, I want no contact outside of legal communication if necessary. My mom opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again when the facilitator reminded her of the agreement. My brother stared at the table like it might swallow him. When the meeting ended, I stood up first. For a moment, I just looked at them. The woman who had taught me to laugh at my own pain, the brother who had always pushed me further toward the edge to see if I would fall. Then I turned and walked out. The air outside felt different, lighter, sharper, mine. Months later, I would sit down in front of my camera in a tiny apartment paid for by my own job, not their grudging money, and tell the story all over again. I would look straight into the lens and say the words I wished someone had said to me years ago. You are not crazy for wanting to be safe. You are not cruel for refusing to laugh when someone turns your fear into a joke. You are not ungrateful for walking away from people who prove, over and over again, that they do not value your life. My mom thought it would be funny to leave me stranded in another state. She wanted to see if I could come back. I did more than that. I came back stronger, and I did not bring her with me. So I will ask you this. If the people who are supposed to love you treat your safety like a game, would you give them another chance? Or would you walk away too? Tell me what you would do in the comments, and if you want to hear more real stories like mine, do not forget to like this video and subscribe.